themselves as they get up here. So this is our project form, and the title of our RPIW was Designing an Environment that Mitigates and Prevents Violence in the Emergency Department. The theme was to create a safe and secure environment in the Emergency Department by having the appropriate supports in place to prevent or mitigate violence. We really focused on the roles and role clarity, the physical environment, and training and education. The purpose was really to help patients, families, staff, and providers feel safer in the emergency department. The current situation for our project was that violence and violent incidents have been increasing, and this includes both physical and verbal abuse. We did a staff survey, and from that, staff really feel that they don't have the adequate training to deal with physical and verbal violence. They don't have the supports to recover from these incidents, and that rooms aren't set up in the safest way possible. As I mentioned, this is from survey information where we actually had a 50% response rate, or 30 out of 60 staff had completed the survey, which is an extremely high response rate. So this graph that Lisa's holding up right now is the total number of voluntary reported incidents by type within the emergency department. This is based on incident reports that were filled out by staff. One thing to note is that we know that voluntary incident reporting is underreported, so we know that this number is actually much higher. Total number of incidents is actually 93 over the course of from mid-August to the start of November. And the highest proportion there are physical outbursts and also violence involving restraints. This next page is just a list of all of our PQA data, and one thing we'll be focusing on is just kind of some of the commissioner data. So over August and September, additional commissioners were called into the emergency department to respond to violent patients, a total of 78 times, for a total of 305 hours. And all this time when they're called in is actually at time and a half, so converting it to straight time is about 426 total hours of call-in staff if it was converted to being someone that was actually scheduled there. A full-time 24/7 commissioner would be actually about 720 hours, so you're paying for about 60% of that. This next graph that Lisa will be bringing up is around Prince Edward Police Service data that we received from there. And it's the number of calls they've received from the Victoria Hospital and the proportion of calls that have come from the emergency department for abusive or threatening patients. In 2015, there's 720 total calls and 101 specific to the emergency department. And we have 2016 year-to-date data. So not for the complete year. There's been over 561 specific to emergency department. This next graph is the percent of emergency department RNs and LPNs who have been certified in part intermediate or part advanced. And here there's 48% are currently certified in intermediate part, and 0% have been certified in advanced part. Next we talk to is a process map, and this process map is just from when patients come into receive treatment to the ED to when they actually received treatment. And throughout this whole process map, violence can occur at any time. We have many ties and bursts. We've been able to address address 3 of them, but also we've addressed many more than that, but we just haven't actually implemented the processes, as this is being actually a design RPIW. The next few sheets are our target progress sheet, and due to the nature of this actually being a design RPIW, we don't really have many of the traditional measures being utilized. I will highlight the quality metrics. And we'll be looking at the number of commissioner calls from the emergency department regarding violence, and the percent of staff who have received advanced part training. will be ones that we'll be focusing on in the future. Last thing we talked to you about is just the TAC time. The TAC time for the emergency department is 17 minutes. So every 17 minutes, a patient must be leaving the emergency department. And really this puts a lot of pressure on staff, and staff are really unable to process or take the time to process after a violent incident has occurred.
Good afternoon, I'm Lorraine Young, I'm the patient family. From the patient and family's point of view, we assess the environment around the triage. Needing to go to an emergency department at minimum is very stressful. Patients in the area readily gave us their opinions. Those waiting in the cramped triage said that it was very disturbing to be in such close quarters with violent patients. None of us want to be waiting with a young child or elderly parent witnessing what could be a very traumatic experience. Others were confused, then just frustrated with a lack of communication. The area was cluttered with posters and too many small signs to read and signs in the wrong locations. We decluttered, moved and added signs to communicate better where to go from admitting and what to expect when you triage. Hopefully this will alleviate some of the emotions that could lead to agitation and possibly violence.
Good afternoon, my name is Miriam Coggin. I'm a safety consultant for the health region. So our team was actually assigned to look at or assess the environment in ED and how it actually impacts safety, patient safety, and worker safety when there's a violent episodes going on. So one of the area that we've looked at is the triage room. So if some of you are familiar with the triage, there's not really enough space in there to move around. So if someone is violent in there and that violent person has the intent to harm someone, they could just easily grab them and pin them up on the wall. So one of the things also that we've noticed in triage is there's actually a door that connects triage to admitting. And that door is primarily used as an exit door when there's something going on. But there's actually blocking that door when we were there. So this is a drawer that is used by the triage nurse as an extension to her desk because there's not enough space on the desk. So what we've done this week is move out that drawer and put on a more functional shelving. So there's enough space, and if they have to get out, there's an easy way to get out.
My name's Christine Miller. I'm a registered nurse that works in the emergency department. So I'll be speaking to the environment, specifically the room utilized to treat our mental health patients in the emergency. So prior to the changes made with this RPIW, it was very congested setup and set up very unsafely. The healthcare provider was often seated in the back corner of the room or in the patient's personal space or standing in the doorway, which could be perceived as non-engaged by the patient. So there was also excess furniture and equipment stored in this room, which at times became a danger to both the patients and staff. So modifying the setup of this room was done to create a safe environment for both the staff and the patient. By labeling the appropriate seating areas for the patient and health provider, this will hopefully reduce confusion for the patient on how to utilize the space, as it's not the typical furniture used or a regular hospital room setup. So this design allows for therapeutic communication to take place between the practitioner and the patient, as the provider faces the patient still, but is no longer in their personal space. The design also indicates that the provider is to be seated closest to the exit in case a violent incident occurs and they need to escape quickly. Just a side note that a nursing app called Basecamp was used to communicate all of this information and the setup and changes that were happening in the department to our nursing coworkers, so that's how we were able to educate them about the processes happening. We also did some organizing revolving around the restraints used often in the emergency department that are used to protect and care for the unstable patients we receive. They were previously unlabeled and would be unclear on how to use for the inexperienced staff member if they'd never seen them before. And there now is an orientation package that was created to orientate new staff members on the use of these items and visual cues placed up in the storage space so that the restraints can be easily identified and grabbed in critical situations.
Good afternoon, I'm Ellen Gorslick, and I'm a combined lab and X-ray technician here at the Vic Hospital. Currently, I'm speaking in regards to the X-ray department and the fact that the staff for a night shift is a single staff member from 2300 to 0700. This person performs all the X-rays ordered for the emergency department patients during that time. We identified that with the increased number of violent incidences in emergency, there's also an increase in the safety risk for this individual, specifically on that shift as they're in the department alone. Or there can be a risk for any technologist that's X-raying emergency department patients. The process before this was that the X-ray department is notified by phone and then faxed to requisition for any of the examinations that need to be done. This technician receives that, but has had no contact with that patient to know what state they're in. So it was decided that in order to identify to that technologist that they should engage an escort to come with them. What we've done is we've replaced or placed an extra notification on the X-ray requisition. So then that person is aware, I need to take an escort with me or get any other information that's possibly needed on that patient. So they have access to a commissionaire to accompany them, especially being in the department Friday, Saturday, or Sunday night, but they do also have access to a commissionaire whenever needed to accompany them. In terminology, I mean, it's an easily seen visual alert for that technologist. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is. Obviously. Hello, my name is Donna. I work as a clinical nurse educator in mental health. From the idea summary sheet, it was identified by the staff that they did not have the proper training to deal with potential and actual violent situations. To assist in this, an education package was developed to help staff identify visual and auditory recognizable patterns of behavior that could lead to an aggressive situation. Early identification of warning signs of potential violence is very important. De-escalation techniques can be effective to reduce the risk of aggressive episodes from occurring. As added information, the Broset Violence Checklist, which assesses in the prediction of imminent violent behavior, was provided. The unit will decide on how it is best to use this scoring tool. And we had an example just on how it's integrated into the mental health nursing rooms. There also is potential for that mechanical restraints may be required to be utilized, and provided in the teaching package are the manufacturer instructions for application and safety of the devices that are being used, and demonstration of application of these devices prior to use will also reduce risk. This package was developed for the orientation of new and existing employees.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is April Brown, and I'm a licensed practical nurse, and I work here in the emergency department at the Vic. Another problem that we had realized through an idea summary sheet is how the staff was affected emotionally by these recurring violent episodes. So a solution that we had come up with was getting ACAP, which stands for the Acute Care Access Program, and to do diffusing sessions on a daily business with the emergency room staff as well as security. And so we did try that. We were able to speak with 17 healthcare team members. An issue that we realized quickly was the department can get so chaotic that it's very difficult to have undivided attention, the amount of interruptions. So that's something that we're going to continue to work on and just figure out as a unit in the future how often we're going to do this, how long, and a more private place.
Hi, I'm Matt Parsons. I'm one of the physicians in the emergency room. What the next part that we wanted to focus on was defining the roles that each of the team members would play in a violent scenario. So really looking at physicians, nurses, commissioners, the three groups that are really involved when a patient is violent or a family member is violent. So the reason we wanted to kind of formalize these roles in a standard work form was so that we had a way of formally communicating to one another what our roles were. As you can imagine, in a violent situation, it's quite chaotic. It's dangerous both to staff and to family members. You're often trying to ensure that other patients aren't hurt, including children. So it's a stressful time. So being able to communicate to each other which the roles of each is important. And then also we developed a survey to try and assess how staff felt about the roles that we were defining for each.
Hi, my name is Ross Allison, Commissioner in charge of security at Vic Hospital. My role is safety of staff in emergency department. The problem from the summary sheet that staff in the ER department have been feeling unsafe due to more violent patients in the ER department. To address this problem, on Wednesday, November 23rd, 2016, we did a trial run with the commissioner posted or stationed in the ER department from 1900 to 0700. We created a new standards sheet for the commissioner posted in the ER department. This means post orders for the commissioner, what to do in the ER for 12 hours. Then we moved the triage commissioner or guard into ER department Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. A lot of steps from the security office to ER department were saved because of the guard posted in the ER department. On November 23rd, 2016, at 23:30 hours or 11:30 p.m., the commissioner on trial opened the ambulance door for the ambulance driver and patient. Within 2 to 3 minutes, the patient became very violent to staff, doctors. Commissioner was called to help restrain patient, staff. Staff and doctor and commissioner could not put restraints on patient. Commissioner radio office for help for 2 commissioners arrived and helped restrain patient. The benefits of having a guard in the ER department are ER staff does not have to call security, security is present. Staff feels safer, doctors are happy, patients feel safer. Just having guard in ER department walking around in uniform helps calm everybody in ER department. Thank you.
My name is Donna. I'm Lisa Herodens. I'm the Director of Therapies for the region, and I was the second co-lead in this event. And so I'm just, Brendan's folding here. We did a small 5S in the patient kitchenette in the ED, and you can see that there was no specific place for trays, patient trays to be placed, and the sink is inaccessible. So we did some cleanup and some added a tray, place for trays to go, and it allowed for the sink to be easily used, and which of course is safer for infection control purposes and for patients and families and staff. We did a the pre-5S score was 1.8 and our post was 2.9. So we did a safety wheel, as Brendan's just gathering that. We identified 37 issues in our safety walk through the ED, triage, and close proximity areas. And we were able to eliminate 12 of those from our improvement work, and there's still outstanding issues that need to be addressed as time goes on. So. Our event newspaper, I think the team has done a fantastic job at highlighting the great work We have some outstanding things, but I just want to highlight that the staff that are needing their part recertification will continue to do so, and no ED staff member has had access to advanced parts, so we'd like to have that pursued, and that the staff continue to explore ways for the diffusing sessions to occur in the right place at the right time when they need it. Key accomplishment, we were also able to make a designated parking spot for police. And in speaking with one officer who used the spot, he said it was monumental change in their practice. They can get the patients who they're bringing in into the ED quicker, and they can also respond much faster because they're not having to find a parking spot and they're not having to go out and move their car if they've had to leave it. So it's made a huge difference in their world.
So, as Lisa has outlined, there's been several accomplishments this week. I think we are all aware that within the constraints of a week, there's only so much you can accomplish. We've made several small accomplishments, but certainly in speaking with staff, fellow physicians, nurses, commissioners, many of the big issues still exist. And we're all aware of the current environment of budget constraints, quite evident, most recently. With that being said, certain realities, there are financial realities, but there's also realities of our environment. And I don't think if we lose sight of that, we lose sight of the bigger picture. We have to remember that we are a referral center for many of the northern communities in northern Saskatchewan, that substance abuse and often violence-induced substance abuse is on the rise in our community. And so in looking at some of the areas that weren't fulfilled, there was kind of three that we wanted to highlight. So number one, lack of a true code-wide policy to be rolled out. Number two, 24-hour security, appropriate security staffing for the emergency room. And we're starting to, the wheels are rolling, but we still need to firm up, and that's a necessity for the emergency room. And then thirdly, appropriate space. And so I'd just like to speak a little bit to that third point. The emergency room, for those of you who have been through as a patient or walked through perhaps, the quarters are cramped, and really the level of the patient volume has increased dramatically in the last number of years, as well as the number of violent events in the emergency room. We do not have the space to deal with this. There is no mental health room. There's no room for violent patients. There's no room designated for suicidal patients in the emergency room. We have a quote-unquote quiet room, which is where we debrief families who have deceased loved ones, where we debrief patients, where we try to put suicidal patients, where we try to put violent patients, where we try to put, and the list goes on. This is the only room we have. And relative to many other emergency departments in other communities with similar sort of patient volumes, we are lacking. And so that's just the reality of the situation. We have to keep that in mind, and we hope that in the near future, this will be dealt with effectively.
So in summary to our RPIW, we have spoken a lot about safety for staff and in their environment, but ultimately the improvements that we make for staff in this very challenging environment will ultimately reap benefits for the patients that they're serving and for those families and the public that are coming to our center. So I want to refocus that it's truly about the patients and bring it back to where Cecile started us. We were able to test security in the ED. We did a PDCA, and it resulted in us having our current weekend commissioner to be posted within the ED with rounding throughout the areas that are in close proximity. We have improved signage in the triage area to help with that wayfinding, so the public and the patients coming are not confused. If they're agitated, it's not going to make them more agitated, and hopefully mitigate or prevent the violent outbursts for those folks who are feeling that way. We did start the creation, or did create the education package, and the training is in the works. We will see that come forward with that in the future. And some space was made safer to be able to function in for families, patients, and staff. There are so many people to thank us that helped us with this event.
Since they can't see it on the screen, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Time.
Okay. So all the ED staff, physicians, and anybody, the DI, anybody, the porters working within that environment, the coming in and helping us as we spoke to them and watched them and observed them and had them trial everything. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To our patient rep, Lorraine, who kept us real, kept us on track while we were doing this. Sponsors, Carol and Dawn, thank you for your guidance and support. Tracy, where are you? The nursing unit manager. And Tammy, thank you so much. Our team members, of course, but many outside and inside departments. And there's so many, again, Steve from the Chief Property Management Officer, and Jacques, the urban manager here who helped us, the rock star parking for police, awesome. Brad in the print shop, the Saskatchewan Association of Safe Workplaces in Health, Carolyn and Karen, who helped us with risk assessment for the ED. Corinne, our diagnostic imaging manager, who helped us with the DI rec. Mark from IT, of course our commissionaires who were instrumental in helping us make these changes. Albert, Darren, Joe, and again Jacques in maintenance for so much help in this week. And emergency department, we talked about Tracy. Thank you again, double thanks. And the inpatient mental health department, without their help and guidance, we would not be where we were today. So thank you. To the public who provided the feedback, Parkland Ambulance, Jordan Ambrose, and the Prince Albert Police Service, Deputy Chief and Police of Police Jeff Rowden, and Inspector Jason Stonechild, Linda Clark, and Josie. They provided us with their time, their energy, and their data. And to Cynthia, our Quality Improvement Officer, thank you so much. And to Brendan, it has been an absolute pleasure. So thank you.